Well, a very warm welcome to Bojana Bellamy. Bojana, you are the president of the Centre for Information Policy Leadership. Could you just say a couple of words about what the centre does?
Thank you, Richard. It's great to be with you. Yes, I lead CIPOL. We are global privacy and data policy think tank. We work with global privacy and data business leaders, regulators, experts, former regulators like yourselves, and academics to promote responsible use of data in this new fourth industrial revolution in a way that enables data-driven innovation, economic growth, but also delivers privacy protection for people and their data. And this year we're celebrating 20th anniversary. So that's amazing that we've been in this space for 20 years, but we've seen a huge shift in the last 5, maybe to 10 years.
Okay. And you personally have been involved in privacy issues for most of those 20 years, if not longer. I'm not sure exactly how long, Bojana, but you've understood a bit about our project Bijou. We're trying to sort of humanize data protection, move away a bit from the legal preoccupation and trying to tell stories about what works and what doesn't work with data handling. In your experience, can you sort of think of an example where some sort of organization has had some problems because it did not take data handling seriously enough? It was not really getting it right. We'd like to have an example, first of all, where things did go wrong or might have gone wrong.
Right. I think you all remember, you all actually remember Ashley Madison case. Remember that company that used to be a facilitator of extramarital affairs, incredibly sensitive data and incredible, and this is a public knowledge and therefore I'm talking about it, incredible, perhaps arrogance as well, and ignorance of understanding the sensitivity of data and understanding what can go wrong. So when the security breach happened and this data was exposed, of course, it was a horrible privacy intrusion. And, I think it was absolutely warranted to see companies suffer on multiple fronts, both in terms of, its viability as a company, of course, the regulatory action that they have had in a number of countries as well. But really, it's difficult. Data privacy is a very cultural thing. And I will tell you an example that I have experienced. And this was in my first week of my previous job. I got an email from Asia asking me to approve use of employees' data, and particularly data of those employees who have perhaps not complied with the company's travel policy. Because in this region, in these countries, it was absolutely okay, and it was culturally okay to actually publish in a newsletter or company communication examples of what constitutes bad behavior, and give actually names of people who were shown to have that behavior. And I remember this was one of the first things I had to deal with. And of course, this was against the company's privacy policy, rules and requirements, but it was something that was seen as quite normal in this part of the world. Of course, we didn't allow that to happen. We had very deep conversations explaining, even though these people might have made a mistake, but they were not to publicly shame them and give their names and give so much of that sensitive data really about their cases was absolutely not appropriate, and we could actually achieve the same goal with not disclosing personal data. And I always give this example because, it shows actually how this is about the culture, how it's about just getting the moment and getting people to think about before they do something. How would you feel if you were in those shoes?
That's such an important point, is it? Trying to get people to personalize it and see how they feel themselves. But what about when companies do get it wrong and sort of the customers begin to sort of turn off the company? Do you think that's a real risk for an organization?
Look, I think many organizations are now seeing privacy as a competitive advantage, as a matter of good data hygiene, as a matter of customer relationship. And again, I have certainly seen cases where proactive privacy management, owning to a mistake, dealing properly with mistakes actually engenders trust with your certainly business customers. I was in a situation where because we handled a data incident very well, we actually managed to win another deal with this customer who was so impressed by the measures we have taken and the maturity and the responsibility ultimately that we have taken to manage a problem. And they've given us another a massive outsourcing contract, like, and that is really what matters. So, we are going to see more of those business benefits of good data management practices.
And that is rather consistent with the sort of what I call the slogans of Project Bijou. Our slogan is change behavior, shift culture, reduce harm. And those are our sort of three punchy slogans for our project. I think you're really going into the area I was coming on to next, Bojana, which is an example of where an organization has realized it needed to improve and how they set about their program of improvement.
Yes. I think one of the things that is probably important for the success of that program of improvement is the tone from the top. Because Richard, you talk about culture here, and there is, people are all about emulating leaders and emulating good and bad behaviors. So how our leaders behave and having that tone from the top about the importance of data privacy, importance of data, proper data handling for our business bottom and top lines, that is really what makes the culture change. And then that tone from the top has to then percolate everywhere across the organizations at all levels. We all often talk about this frozen middle, people at the bottom doing things, people at the top doing things, but a frozen middle doesn't. So it really is incredibly important that everybody in the organization understands what is their role in delivering the culture change. What do I specifically need to do to improve our data handling practices? And in order to do that, organizations really need to get to the bottom of it. Why does this matter? And if we only look at data privacy as a matter of legal compliance, people will not get excited. People are not going to lead those leaders, right, at the top. They will say, okay, it's just another law I have to worry about. But I think if organizations manage to understand what is the business value of doing good data protection, having sound data management processes. Now that changes everything, because then people understand, well, we are doing this because ultimately it is going to bring us more customers, more consumers. We will be more trusted, right? We will be able perhaps to do more with data in this new world where data is the asset that is driving innovation. Maybe having the data privacy management program would enable us to engage more in machine learning, AI, big data analytics in a responsible way, whereas our competitors may not. And so, and Richard, you often talk about enlightened self-interest. So leaders and organizations need to explain that self-interest to everybody. Why does it matter for each of us to actually do the right thing?
Yeah, I think you made a really important point about the leadership and the impact of people at the top. And you talked about the frozen middle. I remember we used to call it the damp proof course inside virtually every organization. There's sort of like a plastic membrane, and the people at the top need to get a pitchfork and punch holes to get the message down into the organization. But equally, the frontline staff know what's going on, so they need a pitchfork to punch upwards to get the stories going upwards as well. So you're really saying that it's sort of leadership and the human factor is terribly important in getting it right. So other factors you could think of, which in your experience have really sort of pushed organizations in the right direction.
Right. And I mean, look, we have seen many organizations develop much more mature, comprehensive privacy management programs. We've seen some fantastic examples of really innovative training, a company that has actually got a privacy mascot, which has got an identity of its own, and employees talk about this mascot, it's got its intranet sort of profile or site as well. So, you have to be very imaginative in how you talk about culture and values. I think it's also very important to actually articulate values. How does this data fit into our general values as a company, in our code of business ethics as well? And that's where kind of data protection hits the ethical behavior, and it is a must for every company. I'm not saying that ethics will replace ultimately the legal behaviors and good management, but it is important to consider, how it all fits into the bigger organizational picture. And we've seen some innovative things as well. For example, one organization has been using so-called mystery shoppers from their client side, allowing them to exercise subject access request or perhaps a request for deletion, just to test how the systems would work. And this enabled also clients to understand that they're dealing with a responsible company and somebody who would actually look after their data if need be as well, and deal with these kind of requests if need be.
That's a really interesting example of mystery shopping. I haven't come across that before, but I can see some real scope for that too. Just one
I think
final.
there's a tremendous innovation in the way people really build that privacy culture. We have to use tools from so many other different areas, right? One of the interesting things, for example, is how do you develop a privacy notice on your app or your website? In old days, we used to all gather together and lawyers would write this and make sure that every single paragraph of the law is reflected in our privacy notice. And Richard, you were the first one to say to us, these are impenetrable. Nobody can read them. They're too long, longer than any longest Shakespeare's play. Well, now organizations are using design experts and user design experts to actually help construct best privacy notices, to tell people what they really need to know, and in a way that people don't feel is imposing, but actually helps streamline the delivery information and streamline the use of the service. And so that's where privacy is going to go, right? Into privacy engineering, into user design, marketing experts to market the privacy message, as opposed to always looking that from legal side.
Well, I think that is some really important lessons there and some really important stories you've been telling there, Bojana. So thank you very much indeed for joining us today. Thanks a lot.